Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring. It's a South Korean movie directed by Ki-Kim Duk. It released in 2003. The movie follows the life of a Buddhist monk, taking place on the Floating Monastery in the lake in the middle of a forest. We follow him as he grows up, while the story divides the moments of his life using the seasons. As the name of the film suggests, Spring, Summer, Fall, Winter, and Spring is divided into 5 parts, and according to these seasons, each representing a part in a Buddhist monk's life from childhood to adult. The lake is surrounded on all sides by steep walls of forest and stone. It is approached through 2 large painted wooden doors which swing open to introduce each season of the movie and frame the floating monastery. These doors do not keep anyone out, because one would just have to walk around them to find the rest of the shoreline open and free. But they are always respected. So what do we learn about these doors that close nothing out or in? They are not symbols, but lessons. They teach the inhabitants that it is important to follow custom and tradition, to go the same way that others have gone, to respect what has been left for them. The images of the floating monastery on a raft are perfect in that they enable us to see the changing qualities of the world we live in day by day. Using the 4 seasons as a backdrop for the spiritual teachings of compassion, suffering, loss, desire, attachment, and transformation. There's incredible scenery that you'll feast your senses on, like that 300-year-old tree, the ripples of the pond, the varied animals for each season, the mist that shrouds the pond in mystery, the monks' daily devotional rituals, and the many excursions to shore where a gate opens to the wider world that lies beyond. Everyone who experiences this extraordinary film will savor the complex emotions that make life such a great spiritual teacher. According to the Buddhist teachings, the real nature of the life and universe is nothing other than suffering, the cause of suffering, the way leading to it. In the film, we learn that attachments or simple beliefs or delusions that become solidified as truth. There's also the concept that everything changes and nothing stays the same. The film portrays the suffering of the world, and the cause of it being the self. Each season is represented by a different animal. A dog in the spring, rooster in the summer, cat in the fall, and finally, a snake in the winter. Buddhists believe that everything is driven by karma. Your actions in your life will determine where and how you will be reincarnated. In the real world, the actions of a person, whether good or bad, reflect the quality of his or her life. The cycle is apparently broken when one reaches nirvana. Nirvana means the extinction of clinging, the elimination holding to the concept of the self, and holding to the concept that things are real, and the eradication of the obstacles of defilement and the obstacle of knowledge. If one is freed from desire, they are therefore freed from suffering. It illustrates the quiet state of mind that one can achieve when the fire of attachment and desire is gone. The reason for suffering, desire, and lust is because the mind becomes attached to non-permanent things, and that blinds or changes reality. While I'm not a Buddhist, nor have any interest in being one, I find these messages useful. Having emotions and attachments are often what lead us to becoming miserable. If we were to rid ourselves of feelings and emotions, we would therefore be at peace. So, why this movie isn't more well known is beyond me. It's one of those rare films that you never forget. And maybe the reason for that is because it has to do with stages everyone goes through in life. This is such a rewarding experience for the visuals alone. I've never seen a more beautiful landscape filled with nature at its best. I've become so sick of dark movies that take place at night in an office building or dull cities. I don't get why more movies don't include interesting outdoor settings. What's also interesting about the way this is filmed is a very little dialogue. And while that could make a movie boring, this one remains interesting with a great pace that never drags. The director of this movie, Ki-Kim Duk, uses this technique of little dialogue in most of his films, relying on the acting and what's going on in the picture. And to me, that's what true cinema should be. After I saw this movie and was blown away by everything in it, I checked out the director's other movies expecting something similar. But strangely, most of his other films are very dark and disturbing. It doesn't have the nature or the scenery of this film. He must have had something very revelating happen in his life to create something like this. I'll also add that while there is a lot of Buddhist themes in this movie, the audience doesn't need to be a Buddhist to appreciate this. It's simply like being an outsider looking on something interesting and mystical. This movie is like the definition of Eastern mysticism that Westerners often attribute to the East, and I've always been in love with that concept of a mysterious culture that lives with peace and harmony in nature, away from technology and advancement. It really makes you question what's missing in life, and maybe that we've strayed too far from simplicity, and we've become miserable because of it. Anyway, this is a masterpiece that everyone needs to see and should not be missed.